Hello, friends. Took a while off because there's a guy going around on TikTok. He's spreading a lot of divisive material between men and women, and we want to bring people together. We want people to understand themselves. Kind of brought us down. I kind of played devil's advocate. Then I felt bad, then she felt good, then I felt bad, then she felt good. Anyway, we're back and on track.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to talk about groupings.
Groupings.
It's a fundamental thing.
Okay.
So, grouping. You can group your experiences. Shut up.
Whoa. It's aggressive, dude.
You can group concepts.
Mm-hmm.
You can group genres. In fact, genres basically are groupings. You have in music, hip hop. That's a genre. That's a group. I just thought about that one. In science, physics, that's grouping. Of the sciences, and so it's clearly something that helps us categorize information. Now, quick aside.
Keep in mind that we've already done scale. So we can
Have we?
Yeah, we've done scale. Well, you just about to do scale.
Yes, I was. So one of the things that I proposed, and we can see if it logically holds true with the logic machine herself. 1001 is that you have lots of these different points, and in order to scale out, you must first start grouping. So now we had 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. Now we have from 11 to 3.
Assuming that the dot is a unit. Yeah. Okay. The smallest unit. Otherwise, you don't need groupings necessarily. Actually, yeah, you do need groupings.
No, because you can group a grouping. You can group it,
But if the unit itself is a grouping.
Mm-hmm. You can group a grouping.
What about groupings that are already grouped? Like the human, you're a grouping.
Yeah.
I'm a grouping.
Yeah.
You don't make me.
Well, wait, hold on, what?
You didn't group me. I've been grouped by God.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar.
Butchered it.
Damn, I tried to put sauce on it, but it didn't hide the underlying bad flavour.
Okay, what I mean is... Okay, alright. You're not talking about the actual act of grouping. You're saying grouping has to be done for you to scale in or out.
Out.
Or in?
I think when you scale in, you see the nuance within a grouping.
So if
when you say
grouping,
hip hop,
you scale in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a grouping. That is a grouping. That turns into this, which is this and
exactly.
This. But that's a grouping. So you need grouping in order to scale in and out. So you can have this. Becomes a grouping, but that is this, and then you can have and that's one thing. Scaling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just let me sit with it for a sec.
I don't know what this would be though. The grouping of the groupings that are seemingly unconnected.
Well, you wouldn't have. There's no connections in this depiction, right? You don't always have to have.
Well, that's a grouping. So how did we group these? The fact that I've put the circle around it
is the connection.
Is the connection.
Yeah.
But what is that? Like I'm trying to think what that could be. Two independent things that are seemingly two things, because this can be redrawn as this, right?
So I was thinking of this example where you would have here you have there's some nuance here, because let's say you have the blues here. Within that, you can have elements of hip hop. But this constellation is different from this one. But at the same time, within hip hop, you can have elements of the blues.
Mm-hmm.
But both these things still aren't that. But if you could draw a link between those, this could be music. Or it could be black music. Or it could be American music.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of looks like this. But it's kind of interesting in the way in which you group it has quite a lot of significance, doesn't it? Because the blues came first, does it have to be blues on the outside and hip hop on the inside? Or
No.
if hip hop's larger, do you draw hip hop the big one, and because blues isn't popular anymore, you do blues on the inside?
So you could decide that it's not clear which one. So blues, it depends what you're grouping. Hip hop isn't blues music, is it?
No.
Hip hop is influenced by blues music, right? Is what you're saying. So hip hop has blues music inside it. So if you're talking about influence, then you could say this. Then you could group it in this way. What else is it if influenced jazz? What else did it influence? Rock. So then if you're talking about I don't know whether blues has influenced jazz. Let's just assume it has. And let's say it influenced pop. Yeah. And it influenced rock. Yeah. Right? So you have blues music. This is now a grouping of influence.
Okay.
Then sure, but this is a grouping of
popularity or something like that.
No. This is a one directional influence. This is the other directional influence. Part of hip hop stems from blues music.
Yes.
Is influenced by. This influences. This has influenced rock. This has influenced pop. It has influenced hip hop. It's not that hip hop influenced blues, though it might have. Blues influenced hip hop. What else influenced hip hop? Rap. What else influenced hip hop? Pop. Right? So it's the direction. It depends what you're grouping. But the thing about grouping is it's kind of up to the individual.
So I think what you need for grouping is some type of criteria.
Yeah.
Or preference. And based on this, you create your grouping.
Yeah.
I think that's core to the grouping. So for example, let's say your parent shouts at you. So we have an experience here, and you have big parent, little kid, and you've been throwing water all over the place, and now like everywhere's wet and muddy.
Hungry.
This kid takes this and puts it in a certain bucket. Puts it in this bucket. So the interesting thing is how the user groups something strongly affects their reality, their perceived reality, because what they call this group, parents doesn't know love. Right? They don't love me. Someone who would love me wouldn't shout at me like this.
And it could go into multiple groups.
And it could go into multiple ones because it could be strict.
Or this is what happens.
Or no water.
This is what happens when I mess about.
Right? Or playfulness, right? Or whatever, right? Positive, negative association. And, this might get dished out in various degrees. And so when something happens in the future and parent is angry, this kid might group this in a certain way, depending on their criteria and their preferences.
Or that person might try to understand why that person's angry.
Based on previous
groupings.
Yeah.
So it's like, I haven't thrown water, and I haven't. So they're either just really strict as parents, or they don't love me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
An idea came out.
I feel like you pulled that one out, mate. That looked like it wanted to leave. Pushed it out.
Grind set.
That was yesterday. We need to do another video. Radio.
So grouping is a great tool because it can apply to the human experience. It can apply to pre-existing theories, ways of thought, schools of thought, right? In terms of physics.
So what is grouping?
Concepts.
Is it a tool? No, it's not. Is it a tool?
I guess, yeah. It's a very basic, fundamental, intuitive
Is it a
tool.
mechanism?
See, is that the thing we're calling it? Same with sorting and thingy, we're calling it a mechanism.
No. Sorting and sequencing is an ask. They are also concepts, core concepts, but especially sequencing, it seems, but also sorting, because this is a form of sorting. Grouping is a form of sorting. You have to sort it into buckets. What's a bucket? A group.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they are concepts. What is grouping itself?
So
What are we going to? It's a concept.
Yeah.
Which we can make a tool out of. Yeah. Okay.
And scale and grouping. Scale requires grouping.
Yep. To zoom out.
And in. See, I only thought out, but when you mentioned you have a point and then you blow it up and you have things inside, that looks an awful lot like a group.
Yeah.
So that was great. Yeah. I never thought of it like that, but that makes total sense, and it's great like that, yeah, because then you don't have to make one rule for one and one for the other or whatever. Yeah. And the benefits of when you scale outward, you can see more.
You lose detail.
Yeah, but perceive less. You lose detail. And how much detail you lose is contingent upon how accurate your grouping is.
Or how detailed as well. Because you can call something by... So you could say something like... you could group stuff like... Have you got an example?
Trees.
Okay.
And you could all say that these are evergreens. And then you zoom out, you scale out, and that lets you see the forest. Because of this grouping. But if that grouping had some non-evergreens in it, dashed in between,
then you just call it trees.
Suddenly, this, or even either you call it trees or you mischaracterize it as evergreens, this forest has less, you lose even more detail. So when you scale out...
But that's not, you don't lose the detail because you scale out. You lose the detail because you call it evergreens. So the reason
you lose
why
detail both times.
Okay.
But one you lose more detail and it's less accurate.
Like if you go straight to trees here, that's less detail than evergreens.
Yeah.
So if you call it trees, that's what I mean by detail. If you call it trees and then you zoom out to forest, or you zoom out from this to this, you lose more detail than if you zoom out from this to this. That's what I mean. Because that's less
more accurate.
Detail. Okay. All right. We're saying the same thing.
No.
Well, it is more accurate, yeah.
Well, how would you word it?
It's precise.
Yeah, precise. Okay.
Okay. So we want to call it precise, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, precision.
Yeah, precision grouping. Okay.
Dent or dant?
Didn't. Of grouping. I'm gonna make coffee chance.
I was thinking that.
Oh wait, are we done with grouping?
I mean, that's basically grouping, right?
I think so.
Incredible. So grouping, very intuitive, right? Part of our fundamental things. And we use it all the time.
It hasn't been developed into an explicit tool just yet, unlike other things.
But a lot of tools are dependent on grouping.
Yeah.
And also scale is dependent on grouping as well.
A lot, yeah.
So it's a fundamental thing. It's very intuitive and thereby very useful. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.